Hello, welcome back to another episode of Nobody is Doing It Right, the podcast for those who are uncertain. My name is Kat. I am one of these perpetually uncertain people. I'm also a writer, digital creator, self-awareness guide. I help others like me or who are on the same journey as me get a bit of clarity, some guidance, some self-awareness with the content I create. For today's episode, we are going to talk about wanting others to choose us because we aren't choosing ourselves. And this is a topic I talked about in one of my TikTok videos that kind of blew up in the last week. And the fact that it blew up shows me like, okay, we all kind of have the same experience. We go through the same experiences. And I think it's important that we really explore these concepts, because the fact that so many people agreed with the question I posited in that video, which was, do you actually like them, or do you actually want them, or do you just want them to choose you because you haven't been choosing yourself? The fact that so many people, it resonated with so many people, shows me that we are all kind of struggling with the same things when it comes to self-worth, being chosen, and not really recognizing that the reason we feel the need to attach to people is not always necessarily because we want them or that they are a right fit for us, that they, their values and their morals align with us and their character traits are in alignment with ours, but because we want somebody who reflects something specific to choose us, because maybe we haven't been choosing ourselves for a long time. And so we're also going to talk a bit about avoidance and avoidant attachment and the avoidant anxious dynamic within this episode as well, because that also applies to this topic. And it's also a video I made on TikTok as well that kind of not blew up, but did pretty well, where I asked, do you attract avoidant partners, or is there just something about yourself that you're trying to avoid? So these all kind of tie in together, but I do want to focus primarily on the choosing yourself topic. So the reason I asked this question, and I think it's so important for all of us to consider, especially people who find themselves in relationships that aren't mutual, relationships where they're struggling with a partner who is avoidant or who's not fully engaged, who they feel like they have to chase, or, are always worried about when they're going to text or when they're going to call, or, constantly being so engaged and involved in this person to the point where they start to neglect themselves, and I'm sure anyone listening right now probably has experienced something like this. So I don't think that this doesn't apply to everybody at some point in their lives, because the struggles with self-worth, not feeling like we are worthy enough without somebody else saying that we are, that applies to everybody, I think, right? I don't think there's anyone that's exempt from feeling this way. So a situation like this would be, you're seeing somebody, maybe you're in the talking stage with somebody, and maybe you've already engaged physically, or you're just casually dating or whatever. And this person is consuming a lot of your time and energy because you're so hyper-focused on them. They're not giving you the same kind of attention, time, energy, whatever that you're giving to them. And you found yourself kind of attached to this person. And maybe you start feeling like it's a love, and maybe it's not really love, right? There's so many ways that we can kind of interpret the feeling of love, especially when we are hyper-focused on somebody. I'm currently reading All About Love by Bell Hooks, and she talks about the term cathexis in there, which is when you allocate or invest a lot of your energy and attention onto somebody, and you start believing that it's love. Because, internally, your mind, your subconscious, whatever, would be like, well, why would we be giving so much attention to this person if we're not in love with them, if we don't love them? But attention is different than love. And so sometimes we might attach to people in this way because there's something that we feel we will get when they decide to finally choose us. Say we're chasing this person's not giving us the time, attention that we want. They are elusive. It feels like a bit of a challenge to get them. It feels like a project, kind of, and at the end of that project is supposedly, going to be your salvation in a sense. When they choose you, the end of the project, when you finish it and they choose you finally, that means you are finally valid. You are finally good enough. And so sometimes we might not realize that this person that we're chasing, just the mere fact that they're elusive is making us want to chase them, right? The mere fact that they are out of reach signifies deep down that if they're out of reach and if they're not choosing us, that must mean that they are great. That must mean that they are in some way above us, right? Putting people on a pedestal. Therefore, if they choose us, seeing as they're above us, that they're not paying attention to us or they're busy or whatever, if they were to finally choose us, that would mean we are there alongside them on this pedestal. So we chase these people, we focus our attention on them and not really paying attention and recognizing that maybe we don't actually want them. We just want to feel chosen. And we think that it's through them that we'll feel chosen. But in reality, being chosen starts with us. It starts with us choosing ourselves. And if you have been in this dynamic with somebody, or maybe you're currently in it, if you were to step back right now and look at it objectively and to truly ask yourself, am I choosing myself right now? I would probably argue that a lot of the answer to that is no. Because why would you devote all your time, energy, attention, focus on somebody who's not doing the same for you? How can you both do that and also choose yourself? The mere fact that you're giving all this time, energy, and attention to somebody says that you're not choosing yourself in the process, because you can't. Where that attention is not coming to you at all. That energy, that focus, none of it is coming back to you because you're giving it all to somebody else. So in that process, you're not choosing yourself. So the fact that you haven't been choosing yourself in that way, I would argue then there's probably other ways in your life that you haven't been choosing yourself, right? Maybe there's been parts of yourself that you're neglecting, parts of yourself that you don't want to see. Maybe parts of yourself that you feel embarrassed of, you don't feel good enough. And that's where the concept of avoidance comes in, right? Like many people, myself included, will say, I just attract a lot of avoidant partners. I attract a lot of avoidant partners. And I've mentioned this before, but I remember saying this to my therapist once, and she asked me, what about yourself are you trying to avoid? And I find that was so striking when she said it, because immediately I realized the fact that all these avoidant people are coming towards me isn't by accident. That's not just a coincidence. I had to step back and really look at the way I treat myself, the things I want to see about myself and don't want to see about myself. And had to realize there are parts of me that I feel ashamed of, embarrassed of, as I'm sure we all do, that I don't want people to see, because if they see it, then I won't be good enough. I won't be worthy. So I'm ignoring these parts of myself. I'm neglecting them. I'm trying not to see them. So of course, naturally, you're going to gravitate towards people who are also avoidant enough to not see those parts in you. There are people that only want to see the surface level stuff, but that's not satisfying ultimately, right? So you're never really satisfied with people who are that avoidant, who don't want to see you fully. But really, it's just a reflection of yourself and how you're not seeing yourself fully. Of course, this doesn't apply in every scenario of this, right? There's so much nuance to these topics, and any kind of relationship is different. But if this resonates with you, then you get it. You get what I'm saying. There are parts of yourself that you're neglecting, that you're not choosing, that you're not focusing on, that you just don't want to see because you're ashamed, you're embarrassed, and you feel if I'm this awful and wretched, then why would I choose myself? No, I don't want to choose myself. I'll find somebody else to choose me. Somebody who I've decided is better than me, simply because they're not paying attention to me. And this, of course, goes back to childhood. It goes back to the relationship you had with your parents or caregivers, right? It all really starts from there. Or even just maybe a prominent relationship in your life that really affected you, right? Because our attachment styles can change in any kind of relationship that we have, right? If it's a powerful enough relationship. So yeah, it's important to recognize when you are engaged with somebody who feels elusive, who is not choosing you, who you feel like you have to prove yourself to. It's important to ask yourself, am I actually genuinely interested in this person? Is this person actually aligned with me? Or am I trying to get somebody to choose me? Because ultimately, if say they do turn around and choose you, which realistically they probably won't, because it's like a paradox, it won't happen. That's the point, right? It has to be somebody that won't ever choose you because they're not aligned with you. And things that aren't aligned with you, it doesn't flow, right? So there will always be this chase. But say they turned around and said, you know what? Yes, I choose you. You're amazing. it won't feel satisfying because that's not really the issue. The issue is not them choosing you or not choosing you. It's you not choosing yourself. So if they turned around and chose you, anybody who's a fearful avoidant here will recognize that then you'll probably not want them anymore because it's when they see value in you that you're like, wait a minute, deep down, I don't even see value in myself. So you seeing value in me is suspicious. There must be something flawed with you then if you like me. And then that ties into people feeling like anytime someone likes them, that they don't like that person anymore, right? It ultimately comes back to the way we see ourselves, the way we relate to ourselves. So yeah, again, I would implore anybody to ask themselves, are you choosing yourself every single day? And a lot of people in the comments of that video ask, okay, what does it mean to choose yourself? It is basically whatever you're seeking from that person that you're trying to get to choose you, right? What is it that they represent to you, right? If they were to finally turn around and say, yes, I choose you. Is it approval? Is it validation? Is it support? Is it love? Is it comfort? Is it somebody that you can spend quality time with? Is it somebody who will, take you out to nice places where like all that stuff can be given to you by you. And that doesn't mean you have to do it forever and that you can never be with anybody ever. Of course not. I think it's so important that we have relationships, of course. However, if you can't even recognize the feeling of doing that for yourself, you won't fully be able to recognize it when somebody else decides to give it to you. When somebody who's aligned with you gives it to you, you won't know what it feels like to receive it because you haven't even been giving it to yourself. You can't even stand stable and secure within yourself to know, like, okay, if somebody doesn't want to give me this stuff, I'm not going to just chase people who aren't right for me or let myself sit here and not be able to experience these things I want to experience. I know that I will give them to myself. I will do the things that I want to do. The experiences I want to experience, I will do them for myself. I will bring myself into that realm. And I don't have to then settle for somebody who's not at all aligned with me or who will never give me the time and attention that I deserve because I'm doing it for myself, And it's in those moments when you realize, like, a lot of the control and power is in your hands. Not for everything, obviously. There are many things outside of us that we cannot control. But when it comes to our self-worth, like, that's in our control. And that's both scary and liberating because it's in our control. We get to decide. And that's a lot of power that we wield, but you have to take control of it at some point. You have to realize, like, oh yeah, no, I'm chasing people who aren't good for me, who actually aren't good for me. And by chasing somebody who's not good for you, somebody who doesn't choose you, who isn't even maybe aligned with you, who doesn't have the same morals or values, all you're doing is reinforcing in your mind that you don't deserve people who are good for you. You don't deserve to feel good. You don't deserve to align with morals and values and to connect with people in that way. And the more you do it, the more you validate that feeling in yourself. And so that'll make you then continue to chase people who aren't good for you, right? But if you just turned around and said, you know what, for right now, I'm choosing myself. Let me make sure all my bases are covered. Am I being approving of myself? Am I validating myself? Am I taking myself out to things that I want to do genuinely? Am I feeling all the feelings I want to feel with somebody? Am I tapping into that for myself? And if you are, amazing. That's great. Then yes, it'll be so much easier to find somebody who's aligned with you because you won't need them, right? You don't need them to give you those feelings. You're already tapping into them, but you want them, right? And that's why I asked, do you actually want this person? Is this person actually somebody that you desire? Or is it just that you want them to choose you and they're not at all the kind of person you would normally date? You're just trying to find somebody to give you this feeling. You're settling for somebody to give you these feelings of being chosen. But if you are not choosing yourself, if you're not focusing on the things that you don't want to look at, the scary parts, the shadow parts, the things that you're embarrassed of, then, and you shut yourself off to that, then yeah, you will just find whoever you can find to be the person, the gatekeeper of your worth, to choose you finally. But it will never work either way, right? So ultimately, you are the one that has the power and you have to just start choosing yourself. And it's hard. It's not easy. I'm not saying any of this is easy, and I'm not trying to make it so, girl boss, self-love, and that's it. It's so difficult because maybe not anyone is taught to love themselves fully or feel that they are worthy of what they want, right? Maybe some people are, and that's amazing for them. I love that. But many of us aren't, right? Many of us are taught that romantic love is maybe the only way to find approval, validation from people. And yeah, and that's it. You know, some of us aren't even taught to seek it in friendships. And it's important to recognize that you are the core of all of that. It has to start with you ultimately, or else every kind of relationship is going to be based on the fact that you feel unworthy and you're going to be seeking your worth in others, or even opportunities, like job opportunities, right? So yeah, I thought this was an important topic to talk about for anybody else who struggles with this, who finds themselves in relationships or dynamics. It doesn't have to be a full relationship, but any sort of dynamic with anybody where you feel like, I just want this person to choose me. I don't even actually like this person. Because you deserve and you are worthy of being with somebody or engaging with somebody who you actually want to engage with. You deserve to enjoy the things that you're chasing in your life, you know? But you have to choose that. You have to decide that you are worthy of it, ultimately. So yeah, I hope this episode was informative and interesting. Obviously, ask any questions you would like to ask in the comments on YouTube, because I do post these on YouTube. So you can ask me there and I'll answer them. But yeah, I hope this was interesting. And feel free to sign up to my email list. I have a few new things coming up in 2023. So if you want to be notified of those things, sign up for my emails. And yeah, I'll be back again with the next episode.